Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's Figure Friday once again. So, today we have Tunnelrat from G.I. Joe. Always an interesting character. To me, because Tunnelrat really is a term that kind of came around, I believe, more of Vietnam. Because we actually have to send um, men into the tunnels that were created by the North Vietnamese, or the Viet Cong, and they would have to kind of silently go through and get it exterminated, essentially. So you'd have to go in and you'd have to do a lot of dirty work. Watching some of the Vietnam stuff, some of these guys talk about, they're going in and they're having knife fights in these really small, cramped tunnels because they're really meant for the Vietnamese, which are, usually a little bit shorter, and some of these guys are not the smallest guys in the world. And you're doing all this in the dark. You're trying to feel around in the dark. You're trying to do everything in the dark so that way you're not seen or noticed by anyone else. So as we look at Tunnel Rat, who was brought to us really more so for the movie of the G.I. Joe movie. He was one of Slaughter's Marauders, one of the kind of misfit characters that became a more mainline character. And here we see him in the Night Force line. And the Night Force being a Walmart exclusive, which I think is funny because I can never find these at Walmart. I have to order them off of Amazon like most people probably do, and we just kind of go from there. Looking at what he's got, some of this does not make a lot of sense to me because he looks like he's rocking an M60 or something like that. Obviously, some sort of machine gun, light machine gun, which isn't really something you're going to want for someone in a tunnel. Now, he's got a revolver and he's got a knife. Those you would probably take in with you. He's got the extra lights, which, they throw the red light on there thinking it's not going to shine out as much or whatever. You can see those red lights. I mean, just think of like the police cars with the red and the blue, or at Christmas time or whatever. You can see the lights at a fairly good distance. What it's trying to do is it's trying to help you not lose your night vision while you're in those areas or in the dark or whatever. So those were the things that were really kind of pointed out to me when I was in the service many years ago. Because I wouldn't have thought about it in any other regards other than that myself. So pulling everything out, we do have his weapon box, and then we have Tunnelrat himself. Now, bringing this all into context here, again, it's a solid cardboard box, which, many others have really made a well-known dislike for, because you really don't get to see the actual figure inside. You get to see a nice posted picture of them with the best lighting that they can do and everything else. Kind of like when you go to McDonald's, you see the best looking burger that they can come up with, and then you get the burger that you're eating, which, depending on your like or dislike for McDonald's, may or may not be the best or worst thing in the world, but it doesn't always look the same. I mean, when you grab a hamburger and they've really made it look pretty, it doesn't always look the same as the one that you're eating. He is only in there by 4 kind of plastic lines in here, so gets him out of there really nice. We don't have all the crunchy sounds that I normally have when I'm trying to get him out of the plastic. And there is some nice art in here. I'm not going to say that there isn't. Just the black and white version of what we have here. As we look everything over, so kind of going through all of his joints. Now he's got a little bit more of the pants here, so that's really kind of stopping his ankle from going back too far. I mean, it goes back a little bit, so I guess it kind of works, but it just seems like the shoe is in the way, or the pant leg is in the way of the shoe, really. And of course we have our twist, which is great because that way if you give him a wider stance, he can still be flat-footed, or if you need a closer stance, we have that. All right. taking a look behind me to hoping to keep everything in here. Now he does have the double knee joint. Now I'm going to do this side because he's got, he's got thigh bags here for like magazines or whatever this is supposed to be for. Obviously that's his scabbard for his knife. We can kind of slide that around a little bit so he can stretch his leg out if he needs to before he goes into that cramped tunnel, and he can do that. Now, if I remember correctly, and please, forgive me for where that is, we do have that joint right here for his ankle, because he's got kind of a low boot or low shoe. This is going to be a boot underneath here, which is probably why that's bloused out a little bit more. But we do have that pivot because of snapping that all in there. I think he's from like the Bronx or something like that, but he spent a lot of time like in the sewer systems and playing around and all that stuff. So an interesting character nonetheless. Kind of, nicely done up, giving him his own characterization. You can do his crunches here. He's kind of nice and fit. If I compare him to a lot of the other characters, I'm willing to bet he should be smaller, because that's the way that they've kind of kept him, is he was a little bit shorter than a lot of the other guys. But getting back to that, he's one of those characters that just likes getting into kind of those cramped, dirty, messy areas, and he works pretty good as like a sniper. I think they gave him a sniper rifle at one point or so he can kind of get into those kind of cramped areas, kind of pick people off, all that. But today we have him with a light machine gun, which we will get out here shortly. Just kind of going through all of his normal joints and everything else. He's got the double elbow here, so he can try and grab his communicator, which we see on display here, as well as his unit decal for Night Force. But he's got his G.I. Joe communicator, which is what they've kind of gone to, so it's kind of like a satellite communicator or whatever. Smoke grenade sitting on here. He's got his bandana, as well as one over his hair to keep all the crud out of his hair. Get him looking halfway presentable here. All right, so let's get him standing here. The only unfortunate thing is, compared to the last set that we just did last week, we don't have a base here. That's always kind of missing when we don't have those. And then we have, I've been saving these boxes because what I'll do is, whenever I get all the weapons and whatever I don't physically have on the characters, because I'm putting them in boxes and they're all kind of communally thrown in together. Anything I don't keep on the character, I end up putting in the boxes. So, all right, so he has got a huge backpack here. And he's got a spot here for his flashlights, because he's got, what, 1, 2, maybe 3 of them? 2 of them. Okay. So he's got 2 of them, so we'll put one flashlight up here, the old army flashlight. And the idea behind a flashlight like this is it actually has a hook on the back. I don't have one handy. I used to have one handy because I don't really use these style flashlights. They're using D-cell batteries and everyone else is using AA's and AAA's and all that. And now they have the little extra holders or whatever. Instead of using a D-cell, now we're doing stuff like this, so that way you can have 3 AAA batteries and that, which is a lot more common. And that'll take up like a D-cell or something like that for a C or D-cell battery. So we do have his backpack. And again, I really wish someone would come up with making it so I could put stuff inside the backpack. That would really be nice. But we have his backpack. We don't have anything kind of in the way here, so we can easily put that on there. Of course, if this was hollow, it'd also make it a little lighter. Now he's standing pretty good here. But sometimes when you have the backpack and everything else, sometimes it gets a little heavier and all that, so it's a little harder to do. Keep them standing upright depending on how everything's going. Excuse me. Now we have a night vision goggles set, and which really works good for him, seeing that he's trying to keep in the darkness in the tunnels. And then we have his pistol. So, a good old-fashioned revolver. Uh, typically something like this for his job, I wouldn't be surprised if in the reality, if there wasn't like a tether, like a 550 cord tether going around here and sitting inside his holster. That way, if he ever dropped it when he's in the tunnel, he doesn't lose his revolver there. And of course, then we have our, actually in some regards it almost looks like a bayonet, but it doesn't have the latch up here, so it's a combat knife of some sort, obviously, but it looks like it's very styled after a bayonet. Obviously, like I said, it doesn't have like the latch clip and all that. And then we also have a bag here, so use your own discretion as to what you think the bag would really be for. Do you think he's going to set some explosives in here, extra maps or something, or is it just going to be a satchel for anything that he finds in said tunnels or whatever else that he would then just kind of throw in there? You could think of it in any of those regards. And he's got a lot of stuff on him. Okay. And then we have our machine gun. So we do have the bipod. Sits out here. It's got a sniper rifle, so obviously, it's Hasbro being Hasbro. They're doing this to have fun and everything else. And I'm not really trying to knock it all that much in that regard, but I really don't know how often you're going to need a scope, and this would be like a night vision scope, on a light machine gun. That defeats the purpose in some regards, at least in my mind. Now, if anybody out there has a better take on that, by all means, let me know. It's just that with a light machine gun, we never really put scopes on there when I was in the service. So, and I realized that, hey, I was mechanized infantry for just a couple of years, so what do I know? All right, so this does have a clip, so if we have like a spot for a magazine in here, so we fit that in underneath, and then that sits up there. So we have a small drum. Like I said, I still don't fully know what machine gun this is supposed to be. In some regards it looks like it's supposed to be an M60, but I'm just not 100% sold. It's just a light machine gun in either regards, and we don't have any extra ammo for it, so just the drum magazine. So he's not carrying a lot, but like if it was a saw, because we could, with a saw, we could load it one of two ways. We'd either load it with a drum magazine, or we actually had a magazine that we could throw in there, so I could grab any M16 magazine. Today they're using the M4 or whatever. And I could just grab any 30-round magazine, slop it in there, and away we go. I don't know if that's what this is meant to do. Some other take on that or not, but to me, it's just a little bit of, a little mixed match in here that really kind of shouldn't be done, but it's all for fantasy and for fun and all that stuff. So it just is what it is. So all in all, though, not a bad figure. A nice little figure for the day. We're only doing one figure today. We're not doing a group of them. I mean, I have plenty of other ones I could throw in here with them, but I got him ordered. He came in. I figure we'll just kind of do a view on him. Nice short little video on it's 4th of July today. So here we are. With that, thank you so very much for joining me. Glad to have you here. Hope you're doing well. I'll see you in the next video, and happy 4th of July.